Hi there, this is Molendinarius from latinum.org.uk, and this is a Latin language live stream. What I'm going to be doing in this stream is a couple of things. My voice can't really go for huge amounts of time reading, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read, and then I'm going to play a little bit, then read a bit more. That's the idea anyway. I want to say thank you very much for the new subscribers at Latinum at Patreon. Really appreciate that. And if you like what I'm doing, either here on Twitch or you're watching it on YouTube, then please do head over to Patreon, find Latinum, and join up there. You get access to all of my course materials and so on and so forth that I've been developing since 2006. There's a lot of stuff there in audio for you to download and listen to, but this is a different kettle of fish. What we're doing here is slightly experimental, somewhere in the boundary between art and something else. I'm not quite sure. So let's start off with we're looking at Riddle and Arnold's copious and critical English to Latin dictionary. That's a common chord. So the word we're looking at is abound. Abound, to have in great plenty. I love this dictionary because it does two things. One, it improves my English. My English is improved since I started using it tremendously, and it also improves your Latin as well. It has some defects. I mean, it's not brilliant in some ways, but in other ways it's absolutely fantastic. So abound, to have in great plenty. So how do we say that in Latin? We say aliquare abundare. If you have too much of something, for example, too much of a good thing, like too much of this, for example, you'd say aliquare redundare, to have in too great a plenty. But you can never have too great a plenty of practice, both in music and language. To have an adequate supply of something, especially of a means for an end, so you just do enough to get you where you have to go, so you pass your course. That's suppeditare aliquare. Suppeditare aliquare. That's an adequate supply. To have an enormous amount of something is affluere. Affluere, to abound in pleasures, in genius, in leisure. We all wish we could. And maybe when the robots take over, maybe we all will abound in leisure and pleasure and genius. I'm not so sure. I don't think they can do much about that just yet. So, circumfluere copiis, circumfluere gloria, and then scatere, to sort of have a lot of it sort of spread around everywhere like manure on a field. That belongs in poetry and in the late writers of Latin. That's us. We are late writers of Latin, if you write in Latin. To be in great plenty. Abundare, that's like the English word. Superesse is to be in abundance, superesse. And to be in sufficient quantity, as we said before, is suppeditare. Suppeditare. About. Circum, round about, going around and around and about. Circum, motion around a center is circum axem se convertere. Circa axem, the axle, is to go around an axis, in other words. Very scientific way of saying it, we'd say in English. Motion from one to another of a number of objects. E.g., to send anybody as circum amicos, circum insulas, and so on and so forth, to send someone around friends, around islands, and so on and so forth. So, circa denotes proximity, close by. It's considered as a point or points in an enclosing line or space, rather than as an extended, one second here. What have I just done? I think I need to reduce the size of this and see. I've just moved something. Here we are. Okay, I know what I did. Because it's a 3-column text and I've enlarged it, and so I went back and went to the start of the column before. So, kirka, preposition and adverb, denotes proximity, close by, considered as a point or points in an enclosing line or space, rather than as an extended position of such line or space. I'll say that again because that's confused me, probably as much as it confused you. It's considered as a point or points in an enclosing line or space, rather than as an extended portion of such line or space. So, circum urbem commurari est in conclusa vicinitate versari. So to go around the city is to be in that little neighborhood. Circa urbem in propinqua regione, haud proco, around the city, in the close region, close to the city, not far away. So that's what it means. It's sort of a close by, but around. We don't really have a word for that in English that means quite the same thing, that you're going around something, but you're not far away from it. You are in close proximity. Ferre, ferme, 2 forms of the same word, about, both of time and number, not as a loose statement, but of a statement believed to be as accurate as possible or as accurate as necessary. So we don't really have an equivalent for that in English either, this extreme nuance of meaning. Kirkiter, kirka, ad, about or of time and number. Kirkiter as an adverb and preposition with the accusative. Cicero never uses, that's Tully, never uses kirka in this way, but Livy and Curtius do. For example, quinta fere hora, in the course of the 5th hour. Quinta fere hora, around about 5 o'clock. Haud, cerciter eiandem horam, hand, haud, about noon, cerciter or ad meridiem, cerciter meridiem, ad meridiem. And now I can move, I believe, to where? What have I done here? Sorry, I'm just fighting a little bit with my text. So I've jumped. I need to go here and here and here and down a bit, maybe. Let's make it the actual size of the text so I can see what I'm doing. I think what I might do is flip it around. Let's do that. Let's flip this that way. Okay. Now we have the text in its columns, and I can see what's going on much better. All right. So about the 4th part, cerciter pars quarta. Cerciter pars quarta, around the 4th part. Do, re, mi, fa, around the 4th part. Around fa. So if it's fa, kirka fa would be not too far away from it. Maybe this note, maybe that note, maybe that note, maybe that note, but when you get to there and there, you are too far away. So it's not kirka anymore. Kirka, close by. In later writers, cerca aliquam rem versari, in aliqua re occupatum esse, to be occupied with something. For example, right now I am occupied with playing a scale. So that you'd say in aliqua re occupatum esse, to be occupied in something. So legatos de aliquar re mittere, to send ambassadors regarding some matter. Legatos de aliquar re mittere. Or you could use super with the ablative to write or do anything. Super aliquar re, to be sent regarding some matter. Super aliquar re. To go or set about anything is agredi, agredi, or conari, or moliri, moliri. To take anybody about the waist. Now the waist, I suppose, is around the waist. Aliquem medium complecti. Aliquem medium complecti. To take anybody about the waist. So not in the English manner of how do you do shaking your hand, but in the more continental manner, hello, how are you? That kind of thing. So that is aliquem medium complecti. What are you about? How would you say that in Latin? You'd say quid agis, literally what are you doing, but meaning how are you? Quid agis, quid agis. To bring about, aliquid efficere, or effectum dare, or redere. So that's that. Let's go scroll down a bit more. We've still got some more on this column. Can I get to it? Looks like it. All right. So, to go or set about anything, agredi, conari, moliri. To take anybody about the waist, to give them a hug, aliquem medium complecti. So how do you hug someone in Latin? You embrace them about the middle. Aliquem medium complecti. What are you about? What are you up to? Quid agis. It has lots of subtle meanings in the Latin. Just like what are you up to? What's your thing? What floats your boat? There are lots and lots of ways to render this expression. It's one of these things where you have a very short word that has a very slippery range of meanings. To bring about, aliquid efficere. Aliquid efficere, effectum dare or redere, as we said just before. Above, super, above, as opposed to sub. So above, super, and sub, below. Right? So we have supra, as opposed to infra. Supra, infra, supra, infra. And super, and we have sub or subter. So above, below. And it's used in terms of position, as in the position on this keyboard, but not in terms of motion. Only in static terms. But not to do with movement. So the Latin doesn't do quite what the English does. Of degree, above, better than. So super is famosissima super caeteras caena. A more famous dinner than any other. Super omnia, above all. And Livy uses it with numbers. Super octingentos et quadraginta ante annos. It's raining outside, so I'm going to quickly pause because I have the electric stove on and I'm using only solar power in this house. So I'm going to go and turn it off. I'll be back in a moment. Well, that is very odd. It was really, really hot just before, and now it is pouring outside. And I had my electric bike charging, so I had to rush out there and get the charger out of the rain, or I would have had some kind of explosion, I suppose. I don't know what would have happened. Where are we? And where are my spectacles? So, we are above, supra, and below infra, in terms of degree, above and below. And one moment, I'm going to go outside. I've got some clothes outside, and the rain is going to make them all wet. Be back. So I am back because, yes, and I got a bit cold there, so. With numerals in Livy, super octingentos et quadraginta ante annos. So more than 80 and 40 years before. 840 years before. Supra modum, vires humanas, fidem, and so on and so forth. And with numerals, sociorum supra milia viginti. So above that number of people. And ante alias pulchritudine insignis, before all others in beauty, great notable beauty. Praeter, nobilitatus praeter caeteros, and so on and so forth. Before numerals, plus amplius, before numerals quam being omitted, but the noun not being placed in the ablative, plus ducentos miles desideravit, and so on. Let me see if we're at the bottom of the page. We are. So, and this is the third column. So we go down to the next page. And we enlarge. Bring this down. As you see, I'm not so great at using this machine. There's probably a better way of doing it. Probably like that. Ah, there we go. So, where are we? I do not give him credit for the ability to accomplish something. Aliquem, aliquid efficere, non posse duco. So I do not give that person, I don't, how would you say, we'd say he's translated here as give him credit for that, but I don't assess it that way. I don't go in that direction, that this person could do that. Aliquem aliquid efficere non posse duco. Abilities, mental powers, collectively, ingenium, or facultates, animi vis, the power of your soul, virtus, hominis solertia, to cultivate one's abilities, animum mentemque excollere, to be a person of considerable abilities, ingeniosum esse, ingenio abundare. Now, one reason I like this dictionary is it does these things. It jumps around sometimes you have an entry and you end up with stuff that you really don't really expect to find in that entry. Right, we're now in the right place. I think I jumped back a page, and that's why that was non sequitur, as we say in Latin. It did not follow. Here we are. Getting there. So, to put one thing above another, yes, this is where we should be. Rem alii anteponere. To honor anybody above all men, aliquem primo loco habere, or ponere, or aliquem praeter ceteros omnes collere. To cultivate someone, to more than all others, or to put someone in the first place, or in the first position, or to have them in the first place, or to put them there. To honor anybody above all men, aliquem primo loco habere, aliquem primo loco ponere, aliquem praeter ceteros omnes collere. To have nobody above oneself. Neminem habere superiorem priorem. So if you were the best in your field in the entire world or universe, you would say that, to have nobody above oneself. Neminem habere superiorem priorem. As an adverb, supra. For example, quae supra scripsi, what I wrote above. And you find this used in English books of a certain time period as well. From above, de super. For example, to injure from above, de super vulnerare. De super proteggere. To protect from above, to injure from above. Superne. For example, gladium superne jugulo defigere. Above mentioned. Aliquid supra dictum est. And we have this expression in English too, supra dictum. Above mentioned. Aliquid supra dictumst. Aliquid supra dixi. Above written. Aliquid supra scriptum est. So aliquid supra scriptumst. Aliquid supra scripsi. But not supra scriptus. That's dog Latin. So, above, to be above, as in to be better, praestare, to stand out from, exstare, ex aqua, for example, to stand out from the water. To be above doing anything, non eum esse qui aliquid faciat. To be above doing anything, to be too proud to do it. You ought to be above making pleasure your chief good. Temperantior esse debes, you should be more temperate, quam qui summum bonum in voluptate ponas, than someone who puts voluptuousness as the prime good. Temperantior esse debes, quam qui summum bonum in voluptate ponas. The water is hardly above the knees. How do you say that in Latin? Aqua vix genua superat. The water hardly rises above the knees. Aqua vix genua superat. Let everything be fair and above board. So, as an English person would say, it's got to be cricket. Ne qua fraus, ne quis dolus adhibiatur. Ne qua fraus, ne quis dolus adhibiatur. Nihil sit non apertum atque simplex. So, abreast, to go abreast. Pariter ire, that's to go sort of like soldiers, breast to breast. Una ire aequatis frontibus, to go with level faces, to go abreast, as we say in English. Una ire aequatis frontibus. The Phrygians were the first who drove 2 horses abreast. Bigas primas junxit pregum natio. But this is a special word in Latin for 2 words that are 2 horses that are yoked to the chariot. And so it's called bigas. Bigas primas junxit pregum natio. And 2 horses yoked abreast to a chariot. Biuges equi, in Virgil. Biuges equi. To abrade, that is to rub it like with sandpaper or something. Abradere, abradere, or deradere, deradere. That can also be to make smooth by cutting away. For example, if you were carving a spoon, which seems to be a very fashionable thing to do these days. I didn't know this, but a lot of young people these days, now I'm being facetious here, of course, go around with little knives and carve spoons. I've noticed quite a few of them in the last year. And 2 years ago, nobody was making spoons, abrading them with little knives. So no one was, as you would say to Latinate it, no one was derading the spoons, from deradere, or subradere, to shave off from beneath. So if you're making a spoon, sometimes you are subrading it, and sometimes you are superrading it, and sometimes you are circumradere, you are shaving off all around the spoon. So we could use all these words here if you are a spoon carver quite well. If you wanted to write something in Latin about the art of carving spoons, this is your word. Abradere, deradere, subradere, circumradere. And abrasion, if you are at the very end after you've made your spoon and you want it to be nice and smooth, you get some sandpaper out. Circumratio, abrasion. Now here's a word, which is a word that I've never ever used once in my entire life in the English language, but here it is. The word is abreption. Do you know what abreption means? Because I certainly would not know what abreption meant if I didn't look in this dictionary and saw what it means in Latin. So, abreption is raptus. Raptus virginis. Forcible abduction. So if you want to talk about rape, but you don't want to use the word rape, you use the word abreption. Ereptio, as opposed to emptio. So it's the opposite of buying. You just go in the shop and you put it in your pocket. So ereptio would be the Latin word for shoplifting or something like that. If it's the opposite of buying, which is emptio. Abridge. Contrahere, to draw in. For example, to draw in a speech to make it more concise, something that ChatGTP apparently is very good at doing. You get a long email from a colleague and you can't be bothered reading it, so you stick it into ChatGTP and say, can you please abridge this? Contrahere, to draw in. Contrahere orationem, to abbreviate, to draw in a speech. In angustum cogere, to make it more narrow. In angustum cogere, for example, commentarios, amputare, to prune something. Okay, let's look at the next thing. Maybe I can move it here. I don't know. Haven't quite worked out. Okay. I'm 810% zoom. To be spread abroad far and wide. Late longeque diffundi. Late longeque diffundi. And to get abroad, as in you did something and someone started talking about it, it became general knowledge, emanare, to leak out regarding secrets, for example. Emanare. To be generally talked abroad is omnium sermone celebrari. Omnium sermone celebrari. Someone is famous, they are a celebrity, and so everyone is talking about them, and so we have the word celebrari here, celebrity. Omnium sermone celebrari. To be generally talked abroad, to be celebrated. Abrogate. Abrogare. To abolish by the authority of the people. Derogare legi, or aliquid de lege, is the partial abolition. Sometimes here we are told using the accusative for abrogare. Abrogare legi is to repeal the law in total, or in part, by a subsequent law. And then we have the noun abrogation, abrogatio, for example, abrogatio legis, the abrogation of a law, or we have the synonyms derogatio and obrogatio. Abrupt, of what sinks suddenly and perpendicularly. Abruptus. Praeruptus, abruptly steep but rough and craggy. Praeruptus, rough and craggy, abruptly steep. So there you go down the mountain. In figurative use, it can mean sudden, subitus, repentinus, non ante provisus, improvisus. Sudden and abrupt style, abruptus sermo. Abruptus sermo, somebody that speaks very much to the point, they keep it short, they don't circumlocute, as my English teacher would have said. Abruptus sermo. Abruptum sermonis genus, obscure from over conciseness and want of connection. So, for example, the ancient Jewish text, the Mishnah, is famous for its abruptum. It has abruptum sermonis genus, this very obscure language, because it's so concise. And the Talmud also suffers from this, and then you have an enormous amount of commentaries which have to expand on this because it's so concise that there is a lack of connection because of over conciseness, which leads to obscurity, making it a very difficult text to read. An abrupt beginning, abruptum initium, the vehement, impetuous beginning of a narration, for example. If someone just starts without any introduction, straight into it, abruptum initium. Abruption, the breaking off of something, and avulsio, the tearing off of something. Abruptly, abrupte, praerupte. Abruptly, suddenly, subito, repente, de repente, repentino, nec, opinato. These all are synonyms for suddenly. Abruptness. There's no one word for this in Latin, apparently, except when celeritas, etc. may do. So this idea is generally translated by an adjective or an adverb. The abruptness of his departure, repentina, eius profectio, nec opinata, eius profectio, and so on and so forth. All right, let me try and get this now. Okay, abscess. Ulcus, the general term for a suppurating wound. That's a wound where it's all yellow and liquid is coming out of it. And it looks disgusting and it stinks. This is ulcus. I have an abscess under my tongue. Sub lingua aliquid abscedit